Gotham's most notorious criminals, a legendary Star Trek foe, and young Clark Kent's greatest nemesis. These are just a few of the TV villains who have been recast over the years. Game of Thrones featured a number of recasts, but one that probably got the least attention was the Night King. When the Night King first appeared on the show in Season 4, he was portrayed by actor Richard Brake, whose face was even used to mold the prosthetics he wore for the role. This meant that the Night King's face was similar to that of Brake's, something that needed to be addressed when Brake stopped playing the character after Season 5. It has never been officially stated why Vladimir Furdik took over the role of the Night King from Season 6 onward, but some have speculated that it was due to the villain being more physically active in the final 3 seasons. Furdik, mostly being a stunt performer, made him a better fit for that version of the White Walker leader. Though it's easy to miss without seeing the 2 versions of the Night King side by side, the Furdik version's prosthetics were indeed changed to match that performer's face, rather than continuing to use the ones that looked like Richard Brake. A key figure in Hannibal Lecter's backstory is a millionaire named Mason Verger, one of Lecter's patients back when he was still a working psychiatrist. Dr. Lecter does unspeakable things to Mason, and that turns the 2 men into bitter enemies for years to come. Verger first appears on screen in the 2001 film Hannibal, but it's the 2013 NBC series of the same name that delves deeper into his relationship with Lecter.
Whomever is pursuing whom in this very moment, I intend to eat them.
Verger joined Hannibal in Season 2, played by actor Michael Pitt, but Pitt exited the series after only playing Verger for a single season, with Joe Anderson taking the role for the show's 3rd and final season. Given that Verger's face is severely disfigured for Season 3, the change wasn't quite as jarring as it might have been otherwise, despite rumors that Pitt was a difficult presence on the Hannibal set, leading to his departure. The official word is that it came entirely down to scheduling conflicts that forced Pitt to quit the show. The Borg Queen has been played by a number of actors over the years in various Star Trek films and TV shows, but there's an official explanation for this. There isn't one single Borg Queen. Instead, it's a role that can be held by any entity that serves as a main voice of the entire Borg collective and can be transferred from one being to another as needed. Given how much of Jean Picard's history is tied to his run-in with the Borg, it went without saying that the alien race was going to figure heavily in Star Trek Picard. When the Borg Queen finally showed up in Season 2, she was voiced and portrayed by actor Annie Wershing. It would sadly be Wershing's final screen credit before her death in 2023. But the Borg Queen wasn't done with Picard yet, and still had a part to play in the final season. So, who played the Borg Queen in Star Trek Picard Season 3? Not counting the alternate universe Agnes Jurati version, the second incarnation of the main universe Borg Queen was voiced by Alice Krieg, and portrayed physically by Jane Edwina Seymour. Krieg's appearance was noteworthy to longtime Star Trek fans, as she had previously played the Borg Queen in the movie Star Trek First Contact.
I am the Borg.
Smallville was yet another Superman TV show that leans more into the Clark than the actual Superman persona. That said, Smallville was a coming-of-age drama that followed the character from high school through early adulthood. Unlike Lois and Clark, which never went all that deep on Superman lore, Smallville ended up debuting a number of legacy comic characters, big and small. One of those characters was Morgan Edge, a villainous media mogul and crime boss. On the show, his connection to the former was abandoned entirely, and he was instead just a straight-up evildoer. Morgan Edge was played by veteran actor Rutger Hauer for the character's first 2 episodes. Then Patrick Bergin took over for Morgan's 3rd and final episode, due to the ever-prolific Hauer not being available to see the role through to its end. Because the 2 actors looked so different, it was written into the plot that Morgan Edge had had plastic surgery.
You're a new man.
Like looking at a stranger.
Sadly, Hauer passed away from pancreatic cancer in 2019. He was 75. Superman wasn't the only comic book character reinvented for the teen drama crowd. Archie, Betty, Veronica, Jughead, and the rest of the gang also saw a similar reimagining for the 2017 CW series Riverdale. Among the popular series' large ensemble was the character Reggie Mantle, played by Ross Butler in the first season of Riverdale. Butler was also a series regular on Netflix's 13 Reasons Why, which also debuted in 2017. Ultimately, trying to work on the 2 shows simultaneously wasn't possible for Butler, and he chose 13 Reasons Why over Riverdale. Charles Melton played Reggie from Season 2 onward, but Butler surprised audiences when he reprised the role of Reggie for the 100th episode of Riverdale, playing an alternate dimension version of the character called Reggie Prime. In the 1960s-era Batman TV series and 1966 film, 3 performers played Catwoman, with each bringing a very distinct flavor to Batman's oldest villain crush. Julie Newmar became the first person to ever portray Catwoman in live action when she starred in the role in the 1966 Batman series. She would ultimately stay in the role for 2 seasons. Eartha Kitt then stepped in for season 3, seeing the role through to the end of the show.
The more you work with Batman, the more amazing he seems.
The 1966 film was actually released after the show's first season and included most of the same cast from that season, except for Newmar, who was replaced by the one-and-done Lee Merriweather. Newmar ultimately resumed as Catwoman for the show's second season.
I know that Batman and Robin will swallow the bait, and when they do, I'll be rid of that dynamic duo once and for all.
Superboy ran on TV in syndication from 1988 to 1992. It followed a young Clark Kent who was already embracing his powers and Earth-saving responsibilities, unlike the version later portrayed in Smallville. But Superboy himself changed actors between Season 1 and Season 2, from John Hames Newton to Gerard Christopher. Arch-nemesis Lex Luthor also switched actors in the hiatus between the first 2 seasons. Scott Wells played Luthor for 4 episodes of Season 1 before Sherman Howard took over to play the villain for the remainder of the character's arc. Howard also wrote episodes of Superboy that appeared in Season 3 and Season 4. What is it about television adaptations of DC Comics properties that characters can't seem to retain the same actor from start to finish? Another Batman villainess who was portrayed by 3 different actors on a single series was Ivy Pepper, aka Poison Ivy, in Fox's Gotham. Like Bruce Wayne himself, Ivy was a child at the start of the series, played by Claire Foley for the first 2 seasons. Then in Season 3, she goes from young teenager to full-grown adult in an instant as a result of contact with another character's aging powers. The showrunners had wisely backed away from allowing Ivy to demonstrate her classic seduction powers when the character was still a child, and instead came up with a reason to fast-forward her to adulthood so they could finally start going down that road. The suddenly adult Ivy then became a main character in Season 3 of Gotham, played by Maggie Geher.
My name's Ivy.
Geher only came back for 2 episodes of Season 4 before leaving the show, with actor Peyton List becoming the 3rd and final Ivy on Gotham. This was the result of yet another character retooling by the showrunners. This time, the showrunners wanted to get away from the lighter, funnier portrayal that Geher brought to the role and to make way for Ivy's full transformation into a darker, more sinister character. Out of every show on this list, Apple TV Plus's Foundation is the only one still running, but the recasting in question has yet to be seen. Based on the Isaac Asimov book series of the same name, Foundation brings a villain known as the Mule from the page to the screen, played in the 2nd season by Mikael Persbrandt. Persbrandt only played the Mule for 4 episodes, a stint that series co-creator David S. Goyer suggested was only a tease of what was to come for the character and his effect on the show's universe. It would seem that Persbrandt doesn't have what it would take to make the Mule a bigger and more pivotal presence on the show, as actor Pilo Asbeck has been tapped to replace Persbrandt for Season 3. Until we can see Asbeck's portrayal and directly compare it to Persbrandt's, the jury is out on which actor we prefer in the role. As of now, there's no announced release date or window for Season 3 of Foundation, with some of the more optimistic predictions suggesting it could be before the end of 2025. Power Rangers Turbo was the 3rd main incarnation of the franchise. It was first introduced in the 2nd feature film, Turbo, a Power Rangers movie. The movie served as something of a passing of the torch between the original series cast and the cast that would form the then upcoming Power Rangers Turbo season. It also featured a mix of old and new villains, including the introduction of the big bad of the Turbo series, Divatox. In the film, Divatox was played by Hilary Shepard Turner, but when it came time for the TV show, Turner was replaced by Carol Hoyt. As it turns out, Turner had gotten pregnant since the movie, and the time she needed off for maternity leave just so happened to coincide with when filming needed to start on the series. But the role of Divatox was still hers when she was ready to come back to it, and Hoyt only ended up being a temporary replacement for the first half of the sole Turbo season. Turner would play Divatox for not only the second half of Turbo, but for the character's 5-episode stint in the next Power Rangers series, Power Rangers in Space. So this was actually just a temporary villain recast, but a villain recast all the same. Apparently, Suits recast its biggest villain, but most fans didn't notice for a good reason. The original version never actually made it to air. Daniel Hardman, a formerly disgraced lawyer who showed up in Season 2 to make life miserable for Harvey and Jessica, became a frequently recurring antagonist throughout the rest of the series. The character was always played by David Costabile, but Hardman was actually supposed to be on Suits from the very beginning.
I'm sorry. I'm just getting up to speed. I like to establish my own facts.
Under his original name of Phillip Hardman, the co-founder of Pierce & Hardman LLP was played by Victor Garber and had several scenes in the show's pilot episode. However, all of those scenes were cut, though the full original version subsequently aired in other parts of the world. This caused the show's narrative to retool a bit and instead have Hardman be absent for the entirety of Season 1 before making his grand entrance in Season 2. When that retooling happened, the character's first name was not only changed from Phillip to Daniel, but the actor playing Hardman was changed as well to fit the new direction of the character.